Welcome back to the deep dive. This time we're gonna tackle something pretty heavy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you gave us this book by Erich Fromm.
From, yeah.
The Sane Society.
Right.
And, yeah, I gotta admit, it's been sparking some interesting conversations.
Interesting in what way?
Well, just in the sense that, some of his ideas are so radical.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
And it was written back in 1955.
Yeah, that's right. 1955, he was writing this stuff.
So he was already kind of like sounding the alarm bells.
Yeah, about 20th century democracy.
Saying it was an escape from freedom.
An escape from freedom leading to alienation.
Yeah, and a whole lot of societal weirdness.
You know, it's funny, though, because his ideas, they almost feel more relevant now than they did back then.
I know, that's what's so crazy about it.
Like, he was so ahead of his time.
Yeah.
Talking about how our obsession with stuff and our, like, running away from freedom.
Could be making us crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, could be making us all a little bit nuts.
Okay, so this whole escape from freedom thing.
Yeah.
Isn't more freedom supposed to equal more happiness?
You would think, right? Like, a lot
to make us, like, saner, not crazier?
You would think.
Yeah.
But Fromm's argument is that freedom, while being, like, essential to what makes us human,
right,
can also be terrifying.
Oh, okay.
It, like, dumps us into this world full of choices.
Yeah, all this responsibility.
And we have to, like, figure out our own meaning and purpose.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure. So we try to escape that freedom.
By
clinging to societal norms.
Okay.
Following authority figures, or just, like, losing ourselves in a sea of online shopping.
Oh, wow. So you're saying my, like, endless scroll on my favorite shopping app
could be
a sign of deep existential dread.
It's possible.
That's both profound and a little terrifying.
Right. But on a serious note, Fromm connects this escape from freedom to, like, the rise of totalitarian regimes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which is pretty scary.
Yeah.
He saw how, like, anxiety and uncertainty could make people just desperate for a strong leader.
You know, someone to just tell them what to do.
What to do and how to think.
So we swap freedom for security, and then we end up losing both.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope for sure.
So it's not just like these big external forces. He's also looking at the psychology of individuals.
He's looking at the individual, too.
And he's, like, challenging Freud.
Oh, yeah. He goes right for Freud.
That libido is the main driver.
The main driver of human behavior.
What? Fromm thinks there's something much deeper.
Much deeper at play.
He says it's our basic human needs.
Right.
Like food, water, shelter, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, those are important, for sure.
Right.
But Fromm goes way beyond the basics.
Okay.
He identified, like, 5 core needs.
5.
That he believed were, like, essential for psychological health.
And he said you can judge whole societies based on how well they meet these needs.
That's right. Entire societies.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me. What are these mysterious needs that hold the key to a sane society?
All right, so picture this. You have this deep need to connect with others.
Okay.
Authentically.
Not just superficially.
Not just, like, on the surface level.
Right.
This is what Fromm called the need for relatedness.
Relatedness.
Yeah, it's about, like, breaking free from self-centeredness.
Okay.
And forming genuine bonds with others.
That makes sense. We all want to feel loved and understood. Right.
Right, exactly.
So what else is there?
Then there's the need for transcendence.
Transcendence.
This is like our urge to rise above just our basic animal instincts.
Yeah.
And create something meaningful.
So, like, artists making art or activists fighting for change.
Exactly.
Okay.
It can be expressed in so many different ways.
Right.
But it's that drive to make something more of ourselves.
Okay.
And then think about that feeling of belonging.
Yeah.
Like you're a part of something bigger than yourself.
Bigger than yourself.
That's what Fromm called rootedness.
Rootedness.
He saw it as evolving from our early connection to our mothers.
Okay.
To a broader sense of connection with, like, humanity as a whole.
You know, it's interesting thinking about Fromm's need for rootedness makes me think about, like, are increasingly online lives actually making us feel more disconnected?
It's a good question. And it's one that Fromm was already kind of grappling with back in the 50s.
Wow.
But he didn't stop there.
Okay.
He also talked about the need for a sense of identity.
Identity.
Like knowing who you are as an individual, separate from the crowd.
Yep. Makes sense. What's the last one?
And finally, the need for a frame of orientation.
A frame of orientation.
Yeah, it's about using reason and critical thinking
Okay.
to understand our place in the universe.
Instead of blindly accepting.
Whatever someone tells us.
So this is interesting because it seems like he's saying that the way we've structured our world is actually making it harder to fulfill these needs.
That's exactly right.
So even back then he was saying our society is making us crazy.
Pretty much.
What evidence did he have for that?
So even in the 1950s, he saw some pretty alarming signs.
Read what?
He pointed to things like high suicide rates,
Okay.
widespread alcoholism, and the fact that a huge percentage of people were being rejected from military service
Really?
due to mental illness.
Wow.
And he basically said, hey, if this is what we consider normal,
Right.
maybe we need to rethink our definition of sanity.
So what we consider normal might actually be pathological.
Exactly. It's like how a fish doesn't know it's wet.
Until it's out of the water.
Exactly. So Fromm wanted to kind of shake us out of our complacency.
Right.
And make us question whether our obsession with material success, consumerism and conformity
is leading to a collective neurosis?
Yeah, like a societal level neurosis.
Okay, so we've got this framework of human needs.
Yeah.
Now we're going to see how modern life,
especially capitalism,
is messing with our ability to meet those needs.
That's it.
Fromm traces the evolution of capitalism from the 19th to the 20th century.
Yeah.
And he says things got even sneakier.
Oh, yeah. Way more subtle.
He saw this shift from, like, blatant exploitation
and competition
to a more, like, subtle form of manipulation.
That uses marketing and teamwork and peer pressure.
To keep us all in line.
To keep us all behaving.
It's like capitalism got a makeover.
It got rebranded.
But it's still up to the same old tricks.
The same old tricks.
And instead of kings and dictators telling us what to do now, it's this anonymous authority
of public opinion and the market.
So we traded one set of problems for another.
Pretty much, yeah.
We got rid of monarchs, but now we've got corporations and bureaucracies.
And this constant pressure to sell ourselves.
Speaking of which, think about your own work life.
Oh, yeah?
Do you feel like you're valued for your unique talents and contributions?
It's a good question.
Or are you just a cog in a machine?
Right.
Constantly needing to sell yourself?
That's the question Fromm wants us to ask.
He argues that this new form of capitalism makes us feel even more powerless.
Powerless and less like individual.
Fromm's called it the marketing orientation.
Where we value ourselves and others based on how marketable we are.
It's like everyone's trying to be an influencer.
Right. It's all about performance.
This pressure to perform.
Yeah, to present this perfect image.
And in the process, we lose sight of who we really are.
What actually matters.
So we're all trying to sell ourselves, but who's doing the buying?
Well, Fromm was particularly concerned with the growing power of corporations.
Okay.
And bureaucracies.
Right.
Which he saw becoming more and more impersonal.
Out of touch.
Out of touch with human needs.
He uses this striking image
of two dogs.
Two dogs.
Exchanging identical bones.
To illustrate our need to exchange things even when it serves no real purpose.
It's this irrational need to exchange.
I mean, who hasn't felt that urge to swap something they already have for something identical?
Right. It's like the human equivalent of a dog bone exchange.
Fromm suggests that this drive to exchange, to buy and sell, has become so ingrained in us
that it's lost all connection to real need.
Okay, get ready for this, because Fromm's diagnosis of modern society is pretty bleak.
But also kind of relatable.
He goes on to highlight several disturbing trends
that he sees as symptoms of this alienation.
He talks about excessive consumption.
Driven by artificial needs.
A decline in genuine social connections.
The separation of public and private life.
And a growing sense of boredom and depression.
That we try to mask with constant pleasure seeking.
Fromm seems convinced that even as we're getting smarter in terms of technology
and manipulation,
our capacity for reason and critical thinking is actually shrinking.
Yeah, it's like we're getting smarter in the wrong ways.
And then there's this erosion of ethics.
And growing acceptance of brutality.
Fueled by the constant stream of negativity in the media.
It's a pretty grim picture.
It is grim.
But Fromm isn't just trying to bum us out.
Right.
He's also searching for solutions.
That's a relief. So what does he propose?
And that's what we'll explore in part 2.
Oh, okay.
Let's just say things are about to get really interesting.
So we've established that modern society might be driving us all a little bit crazy.
A little bit.
But Fromm doesn't just leave us hanging, right? He offers some ways out of this mess, doesn't he?
He does. And this is where things get really inspiring.
Okay.
Fromm doesn't claim to have all the answers.
Right.
But he gives us some serious food for thought when it comes to potential solutions.
Okay.
Okay.
From what I've read, He seems to think that we need a total transformation, not just a few tweaks here and there.
Yeah, he's not talking about Band-Aid solutions.
It's not enough to just change the system. We also have to change the way we think and relate to the world.
Exactly. It's about a fundamental shift in our values.
Our values and our consciousness.
Our consciousness, yeah.
He really seems drawn to models like communitarian socialism.
He was very interested in those models.
You know, this idea of prioritizing human needs over profit, it sounds pretty radical.
It does, especially in today's world.
So was Fromm just a starry-eyed idealist, or did he actually believe that this kind of radical change was possible?
Well, I think Fromm was a realist, but he was also a hopeful realist.
Okay.
He knew that real change is hard.
Right. It's not easy.
It's not easy. It can be painful.
Yeah.
But he also believed that it was possible.
Okay. So what did he see as the path forward?
Well, he was really interested in exploring alternative economic models.
Alternative to capitalism.
That's right. Models that prioritize things like cooperation and sustainability and social justice.
So not just like tweaking capitalism, but actually coming up with completely different systems.
Yeah, he was looking for more fundamental changes.
So I've heard of some of these alternative models, like worker cooperatives and community-owned businesses.
Right. Those are some examples.
But how would those actually work in the real world?
Well, there are lots of different ways to structure these kinds of organizations.
Okay.
But the basic idea is to give workers more control over their work lives.
So they'd have a say in how the business is run.
Exactly. And they'd also share in the profits.
Instead of just lining the pockets of some CEO.
Right. The idea is to distribute the wealth more equitably.
And to create a more democratic workplace.
Yeah, where everyone has a voice.
It sounds great in theory, but could it actually work on a larger scale?
That's a good question, and there's no easy answer.
Okay.
There have been some successful examples of these alternative models,
Okay.
but they often face challenges when they try to compete in a global economy that's still dominated by traditional corporations.
Right. So it's not just about changing the way individual businesses operate. It's about changing the whole system.
Exactly. We need to create a system that supports these kinds of alternative models.
That rewards cooperation and sustainability instead of just profit.
That's right. We need to shift our values as a society.
So Fromm's not afraid to tackle those big systemic changes.
No, he's not afraid to think big.
But he also gives us some more practical, individual level advice for creating a saner life.
He doesn't just leave us hanging with these big abstract ideas.
So what does that look like? What can we do as individuals to live more sanely in this crazy world?
Well, one of his big ideas is a guaranteed basic income.
A guaranteed basic income.
Yeah, he argued that providing everyone with a basic level of economic security
Would free people up.
to pursue their passions.
Without constantly being stressed about money.
Exactly. It would give people more freedom and creativity.
I mean, it would be a huge shift in how we think about work and security.
It would be a fundamental change.
What else did Fromm suggest?
He also talked about the importance of education.
Education.
Yeah, but not just any kind of education.
What kind of education are we talking about here?
He envisioned a system that integrates theory and practice,
Okay.
that encourages lifelong learning,
Uh-huh.
and a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
It's like instead of churning out worker bees for the corporate hive,
Exactly.
we'd be cultivating well-rounded individuals who could actually contribute something meaningful to society.
That's the idea.
Okay.
And Fromm didn't stop there.
He had more ideas.
He also advocated for bringing back collective art and ritual as a way to foster a sense of belonging.
Collective art and ritual.
Yeah, he thought those were really important for mental and emotional well-being.
We've all felt that lack of connection, that sense of isolation that Fromm talks about. Right.
How did he see art and ritual fitting into our modern lives?
Well, he didn't give a specific blueprint,
Okay.
but he pointed to the power of shared creative experiences.
So like music, dance, theater.
Yeah, all those things.
Okay.
He argued that these activities can tap into our shared humanity
Right.
and create a sense of unity and purpose.
He even contrasted like a hypothetical primitive village with all its rituals and ceremonies.
to our modern society.
And guess what?
The village came out looking pretty good. So he's saying that a village with vibrant traditions of art and ritual, even without all our fancy technology, might actually be healthier mentally and culturally.
That's his argument.
Wow.
It's a powerful reminder that progress isn't always linear.
Right.
Sometimes we get so caught up in material advancement that we lose sight of the things that truly nourish our souls
Okay.
and connect us to something bigger than ourselves.
This reminds me of something else Fromm talked about.
What's that?
The pathology of normalcy.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
What exactly did he mean by that?
It sounds kind of paradoxical, right?
Yeah.
It's a really important point.
Okay.
Fromm was basically saying that we can't define mental health as simply fitting in with society.
Right.
Especially if that society itself is based on unhealthy values and structures.
So it's not enough to just be well-adjusted.
Right.
If what we're adjusting to is a system that's fundamentally alienating and dehumanizing.
Exactly. Frommer urges us to question what we consider normal.
Okay.
And to develop our own internal compass for what constitutes a sane and meaningful life.
Even if that means going against the grain.
Even if it means being a little bit radical.
It's about reclaiming our individuality, our critical thinking skills,
and our capacity for genuine connection.
In a world that's constantly pushing us towards conformity and detachment.
That's the challenge Fromm lays out for us.
This has been a really intense deep dive.
It has.
But also incredibly eye-opening.
I agree.
I feel like I'm seeing the world through a whole new lens.
That's the power of Fromm.
We've covered a lot of ground, from Fromm's critique of modern society to his exploration of alternative visions and practical steps towards a more human-centered future.
He gives us a lot to think about.
He does. In part 3, let's bring it all together.
Okay.
And see what lasting insights we can glean from this deep dive into Fromm's work. I gotta say, after going through all of this stuff, I'm left feeling a little uneasy.
Yeah, uneasy. How so?
Well, it's just, Fromm really makes you question, like, all this progress we've made materially, has it come at a cost?
At a cost to what?
To our, like, mental and emotional well-being?
Yeah. I mean, are we really as happy and fulfilled as we pretend to be?
Right.
That's a good question.
Fromm seems to think we're at this crossroads.
A crossroads?
Yeah, like we can keep going down this path of, alienation, automation.
Consumerism?
Or we can choose a different direction.
One that prioritizes human connection.
Yeah, genuine fulfillment.
It's a choice we have to make.
But how do we actually do that? It all feels so overwhelming.
It is a big challenge. From Cuss' point, is that it's not just about individual choices.
Right.
We need a shift in our societal values and structures.
Okay, so instead of a system that's obsessed with profit,
above all else,
we need one that prioritizes
human needs, like genuine connection.
Okay.
Meaningful work.
A sense of shared purpose.
It's about putting people and the planet before profits.
Fromm uses this term humanoid to describe where he thinks we are now.
Humanoid.
Yeah, he says we haven't fully developed our potential for, like, love, reason, creativity.
So we're not quite human yet.
Not quite human, yeah.
It's like we're going through the motions, but not really living.
And he suggests that this humanoid state, it's unsustainable.
In the long run.
Yeah, all that emptiness and alienation has to go somewhere.
Exactly. From him believe that it often manifests in destructive ways.
Like what?
Violence, addiction, apathy, despair.
He even compares modern society to the Aztecs.
With their obsession with human sacrifice?
The Aztecs really...
Yeah, he argues that we've just replaced ritualistic sacrifice with more modern forms of violence and exploitation.
So, like, the way we treat the environment.
The way we exploit workers.
The way we ignore suffering.
It's like we're still sacrificing things, but we've just gotten better at hiding it.
So bleak.
It's not a pretty picture.
But Fromm also believes in our capacity for good, right?
He believes in our capacity for love, creativity, reason.
So we have a choice.
We always have a choice.
To create a better world.
It's not going to be easy.
Right.
But it's possible.
Fromm was a realist. He knew that real change is difficult.
But he also had hope.
Hope for a better future.
A more human future.
So what does this all mean for us?
For our own lives.
Yeah, how do we apply these big ideas to our everyday experiences?
Well, I think Fromm is challenging us to ask ourselves some tough questions.
Like what?
Like, are we living in a way that aligns with our deepest values?
Are we contributing to a society that supports human flourishing? Are we cultivating those qualities of love, reason, and creativity?
In ourselves and in our communities.
Those are some tough questions.
They are. But they're important questions.
Yeah.
And remember, there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
The important thing is to start asking these questions.
To reflect on our lives.
To engage in this process of self-discovery.
To take responsibility for the kind of world we want to create.
Exactly. It's not about waiting for someone else to fix things.
It's about each of us taking action.
However small.
To make a difference.
And you're not alone in this.
There are others who feel the same way.
There are people all over the world who are working towards a more just and humane future.
So it's not hopeless.
No, not at all.
Fromm reminds us that even small acts of courage, creativity, compassion can have a ripple effect.
They can inspire others.
And create positive change.
Even in a crazy world.
This deep dive into Fromm's work has been intense.
It has been a journey.
Challenging.
Thought-provoking.
But ultimately hopeful.
Full of possibility.
It's given us a lot to think about.
About ourselves.
About our society.
About the future we want to create.
What stood out to you most from this exploration of the sane society? And what are some things you might do, even in small ways, to live a more authentic and meaningful life in this sometimes crazy world? Keep those questions in mind as you go about your week, and until next time, happy diving.